So school safety and safety in school and outings like this is a major question. Every parent must be panicking.
Critical. We're going to look at the value that these type of team building or orienteering camps actually add to young people. We're also live a little later at Parktown Girls or Parktown Boys High School, where that meeting with parents is taking place right now. But the death of Enoch Mpianzi has raised serious questions about safety on school trips. So we ask this question tonight: what real precautions should schools take at such camps? Joining us now is Brendon Hausberger from Scout South Africa, in fact the Chief Scout of South Africa. Mr. Hausberger, good evening to you and welcome. Let me start off with the question that Yuveka and I were talking about. These team building camps, these orientation, raft building, whatever you want to call it, what real value do they add to young men and women?
So we find serving young men and women in South Africa that the biggest value these activities derive is they provide an opportunity for young people to develop leadership and group work skills, which, as we know, are critical life skills in the fullness of time. But in order for them to do that, there has to be a very clear and defined passageway of learning that takes place. And it has to be a safe environment, enough risk to make it exciting, but that risk has got to be managed with appropriate safety nets in place to make sure when something goes wrong, you have a solution.
Let's talk about safety nets and protocol in just a moment. But I can't help but wonder, if you're talking about a passage into something like this, whether this particular one, as far as Parktown Boys is concerned, maybe happened too early on in the year. I understand why they were doing it, because it's also about building camaraderie, but maybe that passage into it hadn't been fully explored.
So, Jeremy, unfortunately not having the full details available at this point,
I acknowledge that.
I've got to comment on that. But I know our best practice would be, as a Scout organisation, would be that when we implement things called the small group system. So individuals are buddy paired. So at all points in time, there is somebody who's looking out for you and you're looking for somebody else. And there should be sufficient adult supervision to ensure that there is somebody who is keeping track of something.
Providing, of course, and we'll get to adult supervision in a moment, but providing your buddy is well enough equipped to raise the alarm.
Absolutely. I mean, the starting point for any event like this has to make sure that the venue has the right equipment, is well-maintained equipment, and has the right training to be able to run that activity safely and with the appropriate skill sets to make sure that you do have a positive experience out of it and not a tragedy such as this one.
And I think the tragedy with this is probably these young men were so excited about maybe getting into the water, building the raft, that maybe some degree of protocol was flouted, but not for us to speculate. Having talked about that, though, let's reflect on adult supervision. Two things. What should adults be doing within the environment? And secondly, is there an ideal number of adults to pupils being taught?
So, Scouting internationally is 50 million people. So as a result, there's a lot of learning that comes from different countries and different cultures. You talk about the ratio of adults. In general, around this age range, we would look at 8 young people to 1 adult as being the optimal range, particularly in an outside environment. But that does not take away from the requirement for the buddy system that gives you that second tier. We appreciate that when one's doing an activity such as this, there are going to be times when the group splits up. And as a result, by having 2 people together at any given point in time, there is always somebody who can interact with other people to make sure that there is an incident, and I need help, and I need to deal with this critically.
Do I assume that swimming and fitness proficiency needs to be determined ahead of time?
Absolutely. We would not let young people go on a camp, a scouting camp, without having completed an indemnity and consent form that not only notified you whether they were able to swim, but whether they had any other health instances that should be taken into account for that particular circumstance you're doing, and we would require positive consent for swimming or water activities. In addition, we require our adult leaders to have different degrees of training if they are working in a swimming pool, or what we call a flat dam type area, or in a river. I mean, a river is an intrinsically dangerous situation, and without the right training and knowing how to read the situation and deal with it, you are exposing the young people to risks.
Just a final question. We don't actually know what happened. A lot of what we're talking about is in the realm of speculation.
Absolutely.
But there has been a lot of talk about how roll call was conducted and when roll call should be conducted. And there is some concern, again, we don't know this yet, that there might have been a lag. How should it work? So boys, girls in the river, out they come, activity is over, what then?
Well, even prior to that, what we do at the beginning and end of activities, we bring the group together, we confirm the entire group is together, we call that a patrol. Are they all in place? Are they all there? First starting point. But over and above that, in the event of any incident taking place, anything going not according to plan, and kids falling off a raft would fall into that, one would immediately gather and reassess that all of your individuals and your young people were safe, and had been accounted for there and then.
Brendon Hausberger, Chief Scout, South Africa, thank you very much for the insight.